So, in the past couple of days, there's been an incident in the Australian media about a certain blackfacing issue. So, if you aren't aware about that, well, let me fill you in. So, basically, the other day, there was this mother who, well, you know, she wanted to, have her child basically embody, as for a costume, his favorite footballer. Um, this is Nick Natanui. Um, Now, what she ended up doing was that she painted him in blackface. Now, that's bad enough, but then her rhetoric, mind you, of why she did it was that she wanted to go above, the politically correct extremists, and she noted it was a parenting win, for what she did, because obviously she won Book Week parade dress up event, which is a little bit disturbing because it means the community also kind of agrees with it. Now, obviously, the footballer himself, Nick Natanoi, is, well, ashamed by it and is kind of saddened by it because, well, who wouldn't be? Because it's a little bit stupid, I would say, at least, to do this. But, that's the community that we live in, and I think that it's very important that we actually confront this issue. Now, basically, I want to break it down for you. Why is blackface wrong in the Australian context? Now, obviously, I want to talk about, when talking about Australia, I can't not talk about how blackface has happened in America. But before I do that, it all comes down to, if you're not black, you can't tell what's right and what's wrong about black culture. And that applies to whatever culture you are, especially if you have been oppressed. What do I mean by oppressed? It means that you have privilege. Now, this is a very volatile word, I feel like, because, people who don't want to admit to it, the majority, they've made something very volatile when really it's the truth. Now, obviously, at the top, it's a straight white male. They're at the top, and unfortunately, because of history, black people at the bottom. As myself, as an Asian, I'm somewhere in the middle, but it is a different hierarchy, it's intersectional. We all go through different issues, but there are some groups that unfortunately do go through more, and some groups which basically don't go through any. You want proof of that? Just look at the treatment of Ryan Lochte, and then if we put it in an Australian context, people like Ben Cousins, compare that to the treatment of Adam Goodes, for example, being called a monkey while playing on the field. It's horrible because that's a word that has been correlated with black people for their entire history. It's a word that's been used as an insult specifically for black people, and it's denoted in racism, and for someone to deny that aspect about it is a judgment of complete ignorance. And some people will be very ignorant and say that I'm wrong and say all this, but this is the reality that people face, and being called a monkey isn't something that a lot of other races will necessarily go through to the point that black people go through. And for me, as an Asian, we have a lot of anti-blackness in the Asian community, and I'm here to call it out. And I think that a lot of us Asians need to call that out because we need to uplift each other. Now, I want to analyze America for a little bit. Now, I'm also going to go into the issue of yellowface here because I know that a lot of my Asian brothers and sisters are going to be, oh, but it doesn't matter for us because, we don't mind this yellowface and all that. But you know what? Actually, it's actually wrong. And I know maybe you don't personally feel it. You may not personally feel affected by it, but it does ultimately contribute to society and a societal mind, and that's the issue because ultimately, we've come so far. We have really come so far as, different ethnicities, genders, sexualities, but we've only come so far because of the people that have pushed for those changes. And for us to say, oh, it doesn't affect me, is completely ignorant to what they have done and what people have done to improve our place in society. So, without further ado, let's talk about the history of it, because blackfacing and yellowfacing, for example, actually was something historically done by white actors and actresses in the film industry, that painted themselves black or yellow according to their race. Now, how exactly do you pertain to this? Because ultimately, you have black people, Asian people, and we all look different. We really all do. Does Lucy Liu look anything like Daniel Day Kim? Does Daniel Day Kim look anything like Constance Wu? Does Constance Wu look anything like Jackie Chan? No, exactly. They're all different. Black people, obviously, completely different. Lupita Nyong'o, you want to have people like Waleed Ali, also African, completely different looking. So for us to paint a stereotype, to put on blackfacing and putting on certain body parts, etc., big lips, for example, it's a complete stereotype and it's not realistic to what black people are and what us Asian people are. It's a costume, and our cultures are not costumes. You want to say that this is not happening anymore, that we're past race, the civil rights movement happened in the 60s in America, things have changed and slavery hasn't happened. No, because people of that slavery era are still alive today. They see it. The fact that there needs to be a Black Lives Matter movement, because people such as Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, and Trayvon Martin have been killed. Innocent people that have been killed through police brutality and absolute and abhorrent racism. Now, I want to put the spin on with us Asians a bit, because I think that, again, we have such a big issue of anti-blackness that I think we need to be called out on it. Now, let's put this on, I guess, for ourselves for a bit, because, we did have the Good Earth, and this was from many years back. But this is a story about somewhere in China, and it's really embarrassing when the first Western Asian actress at that time, Anna May Wong, was only allowed to work as a villainess for the role, and which obviously she didn't take, because obviously it pertained to the dragon, the Oriental dragon lady stereotype. Now that movie won awards. So when you have a movie that won awards, which completely stereotypes us with perpetuated accents, which are not real to our own cultures, it's all based on stereotypes, and it won an award. It was accepted into the mainstream media, and I understand that is from quite a while back. But Asians in America make up 5.6% of the population, which, when you consider the ethnical makeup of America, is actually quite a large percentage. And for a show like The Fresh Off the Boat to be only made and been shown, two years ago, like one of the first shows with like Asians in it, American shows, it's embarrassing, and it shows you that we're not represented, at least in American media. And when Asian Americans are of considerable backgrounds in America, it's not realistic. And when you have the only TV shows or movies that are available that could basically are of Asian roles given to white people, it's really off-putting, because the roles available are so little that when you have roles such as those, which are perfect, and they're not given to us Asians, it really undermines our thinking, and it really feels like we're not worth it, and we can't break through of this stereotype that we already do face. Now, bring this back to blackfacing, this is an issue that pertains to blackfacing too. Uh, Living in an era where Donald Trump is a Republican nominee, uh, people will say it's crazy and it's America, but it's actually just comes from ignorance, because every Western country has had some idiotic right wing, and when I mean right wing, I mean like extremist right wing leader in power that is basically looking to instigate the white race even more than they are, and we need to better break this down and move on from it. So now that I've got that all out of the way in terms of American history, because obviously American history really does affect Australia itself too, is that, let's bring us back to Australia, and we have black people. They are the First Nation people of Australia. They are the people who were told that they were flora and fauna until a 1967 vote. They had to suffer the stolen generation, and they are still suffering the ramifications for it today. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, there is a 17-year age gap difference to the expected life expectancy between Indigenous Australians compared to non-Indigenous Australians. No points for guessing which one is who gets a lower one. Only 39% of Indigenous students make it to Year 12. They are 1.5 times more likely to be in poor health, and in a study done in 2009, they are 14 times more likely to go to jail and 15% more likely to abuse substances. And I know what a lot of Australians will say. The government gives them money. No, it doesn't work like that. When you have a community that's shut off from the rest of the country, that is those small communities, those small knit communities, which are in a labyrinth of drugs and cannot get a right education, where do you think that money's going to go? Into more drugs. Education is not being given to them so that they can positively build their communities. So when you have issues such as blackfacing in Australia, who do you think that it denotes? Aboriginal Australians. So, especially when the fact that Aboriginal Australians are still extremely poor, they are very underprivileged in our Australian society. By one donning blackface, it's completely a lack of ignorance of the reality of the situation that Aboriginals are unfortunately on a lower pedestal towards us non-Indigenous Australians, and that needs to be corrected. Now, as I said before, this is about putting on one's culture as a costume, which completely ignores the traditions, the customs, the languages, and the very diverse history that unfortunately has been slowly dismantled, because ultimately blackfacing, yellowfacing, anything type of that is ultimately a privileged person making fun of the cultures. And, they may not have intentions to hurt someone, but if someone gets punched in the face and someone apologizes afterwards, you're still going to be bleeding. It's a simple case of that. Why do we need to say these things? Why? We can just shut our mouths and just not say it, and you know what? Things will be good. But why is there a need to just do these things, say these things? Now, on top of that, we have 380,000 African Australians as well, of many different cultures. Burundian, Congans, Ethiopians, Somalians, Africans, so many. And within those countries, there are so many different other cultures inside them, which, shows the amount of diversity and the amount of just exuberant cultures that is in Africa. So for us to say that, that's African, this is African, you're completely erasing the interculture, the multicultural element of this whole continent, which is abundant of many different people. So you have that, and then you include the fact that many Somalians, Ethiopians were racially targeted back in the late 90s it shows that there is still this ongoing discrimination towards people who are black. Now, obviously, with Somalis and Ethiopians, while they still get a lot of racism, I must say, it has moved on to Muslims following September 11, which, it just shows that it's a cycle, and that we are in completely deep ignorance to the realities of the situation. Now, I know it. People are going to say they really do like these cultures because they wear like certain African tribal outfits. But you know what? Do you know where those particular African tribe outfits that come from? Do you know where that product was made? No, you probably don't, because you don't even know which culture it is from. So you are erasing the identity. You are erasing something that is emotional for people, because ultimately black people across the world are still very underprivileged, and they are seen as lesser. And until the day when we can actually be seen as equal, you partaking in these actions actually is it's not just offensive, but it's actually traumatic to people, because a lot of people are still living through it, and they still feel very sickened by it. And I know what a lot of people will say too. They will say that I just hate white people. I mean, I really don't. I don't. I can easily say that, I have white friends too. But when you're living in a system of the system, you do see a lifetime of absolute bullshit. And I get it. When you are the status quo, any call out looks like a discrimination. It looks like discrimination. I choose my friends based on their intelligence, based on their open-mindedness, and based on their awareness. And that is not about race, because anyone can be discriminatory. Anyone can be homophobic. Anyone can be sexist. So I choose my friends based on that they're open-minded and they are aware. And this is not about me picking out a group of people. It's about me calling out people that do this. Because ultimately, when you blackface, you're simplifying these diverse cultures. And you may not want to listen. You may want to be in your corner and tell me I'm wrong. But you know what? I get it. You want to be ignorant. You want to be in your corner, and you want to not learn. I can't do anything about that. But at the same time, by me calling out shows that I am bringing awareness. And there can be someone who's listening who wants to know more information. And by hearing this, it can give them knowledge, and it can give them an awareness to learn more and be more aware, and it can create a better world. And I hope I can do that.